Somewhere, tens of thousands of years ago, a human being opened their mouth and sang the very first song. And here is the strange part. You have almost certainly hummed a piece of it today without knowing. Think about that for a second. Every melody you have ever loved, every chorus stuck in your head, every lullaby your mother sang to you, all of it traces back to one impossible moment. One voice in the dark, doing something no creature on earth had ever done in quite that way. So what did it actually sound like? A scream? A chant? A love song? For a long time, scientists said we could never know. Sound does not fossilize. A melody leaves no bones. But over the last few decades, researchers have been quietly assembling clues, and the picture they have built is far weirder and far more beautiful than anyone expected. Let us start with the hardest evidence we have: actual instruments. In 2008, archaeologist Nicholas Connard and his team were digging in a cave called Hohlfels in southern Germany when they pulled a thin, hollow object out of the dirt. It was a flute, not a crude whistle, a real flute, carved from the wing bone of a griffon vulture, with 5 carefully spaced finger holes and a notched end for blowing. It was about 35,000 years old. Nearby caves in the same region gave up more flutes, some carved from bird bone, and some painstakingly built from mammoth ivory, which is much harder to work. Whoever made these was not experimenting. They knew exactly what they were doing. Now stop and let that sink in. 35,000 years ago, humans were living through an ice age. Food was uncertain. Predators were everywhere. Every hour of daylight mattered, and someone in that world spent days, maybe weeks, carving precise holes into a vulture bone, purely to make music. That tells us something huge. By that point, music was not a luxury, it was already essential. But flutes are not the beginning of the story. They are the middle of it. Because before any instrument, there was the oldest instrument of all, the human voice. And here the trail gets even stranger. In Slovenia, in a cave called Divje Babe, researchers found a bare thigh bone with holes punched through it, dated to around 60,000 years ago. Some scientists believe it is a flute too. And if it is, that changes everything, because 60,000 years ago in that region, the musicians would not have been modern humans. They would have been Neanderthals. The find is still fiercely debated. Some researchers argue the holes were bitten by a hyena, not carved by hands. But the fact that the debate exists at all tells you how seriously scientists now take the idea that music is older than our species. The archaeologist Stephen Mithin pushed this idea to its logical extreme in a famous book called The Singing Neanderthals. His argument goes like this: before humans had full language with grammar and sentences, our ancestors communicated in something in between. Long, melodic, emotional phrases, rising and falling pitch, rhythm, sounds that carried feeling instead of words. In other words, before we could talk, we could sing. Music was not invented after language as decoration. Music may have come first, and language grew out of it, and you can still hear the evidence for this today in your own home. Listen to how any adult, in any country, in any language, talks to a baby. The voice goes up in pitch. It becomes sing-song. It stretches vowels and repeats little melodic phrases. Scientists call this infant directed speech, and it appears in every culture on Earth. The anthropologist Dean Falk proposed that this is a living fossil. Millions of years ago, when our ancestors lost their body fur, Mothers could no longer carry infants clinging to their backs the way ape mothers do. They had to put babies down to gather food, and a baby put down alone cries. So mothers did the only thing they could. They reached out with their voices, soothing, repeating, melodic sounds that said, without words, I am still here. You're safe. According to this idea, the first human song may have been a lullaby, born from a mother who could not hold her child and sang to hold her instead. So we have a voice. We might even have a reason. But what about the sound itself? What would it have felt like to stand there and hear it? This is where the story takes a turn nobody saw coming. A French researcher named Igor Reznikov spent years walking through painted Ice Age caves like the ones in France and Spain, doing something unusual. He was not looking at the walls. He was singing at them. Reznikov mapped the acoustics of these caves, humming as he moved through the tunnels, marking the spots where his voice suddenly bloomed, echoed, and multiplied, where one voice sounds like many. And he found something astonishing. The places with the most powerful natural resonance were, again and again, the same places where prehistoric people had painted their animals. In many caves, the correlation is striking. The paintings cluster where the sound is best, which suggests these caves were not just galleries. They were concert halls. Our ancestors may have chosen where to paint based on where to sing. Now close your eyes and put yourself there, because we can finally reconstruct the scene. It is night, roughly 35,000 years ago. You crawl through a narrow limestone passage, one flickering animal fat lamp in your hand. The air is cold and smells of smoke and wet stone. You emerge into a chamber where painted horses and bison seem to move as the flame shivers. Around you, other members of your band are breathing in the dark. Then someone begins. A low voice, one long-held note. The chamber catches it and throws it back from every direction, so the note seems to come from inside the rock itself, from inside the painted animals. A bone flute joins in, thin and high, like a bird trapped underground. Hands begin striking thighs in rhythm. And your own voice rises to join, because in a space like that, with sound wrapping around you from all sides, staying silent is almost impossible. There is no audience and no performer. There is only the song, and everyone is inside it. That, as far as science can tell, is the closest we can get to the first human music. Not a tune you could whistle, an experience you were surrounded by. And here is the twist that turns everything you just heard upside down. All this time, you have probably been imagining the first song as something primitive, a rough draft of real music, simple grunts that would one day evolve into Mozart and pop songs. But the evidence points the exact opposite way. The first music was not a weak early version of what we have now. In some ways, what we have now is a weak late version of what they had then. For them, music was not entertainment playing in the background while they did something else. It was the technology that held the group together. It synchronized their breathing, their movement, their emotions. Modern studies show that when people sing together, their heart rates begin to align and their brains release bonding chemicals, the same ones involved in trust and love. Singing together literally fuses individual bodies into one group. Ice Age humans, surviving in small bands where being cast out meant death, were running that technology at full power. We did not domesticate music. Music helped domesticate us. Remember that concert hall in the cave. Keep it in mind, because before this is over, you will see that you have been standing in one all along, And that is not even the strangest part of what is coming. Because now look at your own life. You wake up and put music on before you can face the day. You have one playlist for the gym and another for falling asleep, which is just you using sound to control your own heartbeat, exactly like your ancestors did. You sing in the car and in the shower, which are small, hard-walled, echoing chambers, the closest thing your house has to a resonant cave. And something ancient in you knows your voice sounds better there. At a concert, you stand in the dark with strangers, lights flickering, thousands of voices locked onto one melody, and you feel a wave of unity you cannot explain. There is nothing to explain. That is the cave. It never went away. We just installed better lighting. A song stuck in your head is not a glitch. It is 60,000 years of momentum. Every time you hum without thinking, you are running the oldest surviving program of the human mind. So, what did the first human song sound like? After everything we have uncovered, the honest answer is this. It sounded like a voice in the dark, reaching for another. And somewhere today, in some quiet room, a tired parent is softly humming to a baby who cannot understand a single word and does not need to. That is the first song. You have heard it all along.